Villains are oftentimes as evil as can be, making it a sweet sight to see them get their oh-so-satisfying comeuppance. On the other side of the anime river, though, there are those villains who you can't help but feel bad for. Also, it shouldn't come as a surprise, but spoilers ahead. Number 10. Looking for somebody to love, we have Himiko Toga. One of my favorite bad girls in anime, Himiko Toga is undoubtedly a crazed killer with quite a gruesome quirk. And while she bursts into the scene with high yandere levels, we also see her develop a respectable camaraderie with those she fights alongside with. Fast forward though, while having an epic showing as a supervillain defeating heroes left and right, Himiko is pursued by a relentless Ochako, who wants to show her the power of love. With this, they each pour out all the baggage they had going for them. Himiko spoke about her unfortunate life of discrimination, not finding any love due to her odd quirk. Ochako shares her own thoughts, and eventually, she's able to finally riz Himiko by calling her a cutie. And she definitely is. Sadly, the happy ending could never be, as Ochako still has a small issue of fatal stab wounds. With her heart finally switched from receiving some love, Himiko does what a yandere ought to do, and gives her life to save the girl she can't imagine living a life without. And thus, yandere lovers everywhere shed a tear of farewell.
それでも私は戸賀卑弥呼。好きに生きて、好きに生きた。世界一、笑顔が可愛い。普通の女の子。
Number 9.
まだ私を名もなき者だと思っているか。我が名はユーファバッハ。お前のすべてを奪う者だ。
Leading a crusade to correct the way of the world, next is the almighty Yhwach. For fans keeping up with the currently ongoing 1,000-year blood war in the Bleach anime, Yhwach is a name that is hard to forget. After all, during the first season, which showed itself one of the greatest seasons of shonen anime, Yhwach took down one of the most malevolent members of the Soul Reapers there was, Old Man Yamamoto. And while we all shed a tear for the defeat of the old man, especially since he was giving us peak action, the moment also shed some light on the reality of the war waged by the Quincy. Yhwach had waged the same war 1,000 years ago, seeking to kill all hollows and changing the world order. After violently failing that though, Yhwach is back, and now he wants to go straight to the Soul King to eliminate the cycle of death.
真のクインシーたる者の証、すべては私の手の中にある。霊王の未来も、お前の未来もな。
させねえよ。そのための力だ。
I don't know about you, but not dying sounds pretty good to me. Factoring as well how vicious Soul Society was towards the Quincy's, I can't help but fear for their cause. I mean, just look at early Bleach itself. Little Rukia was sentenced to death for just a small misdemeanor. As corrupt as it gets, I tell ya. Number 8.
だと思ったよ。ここで消えてなくなれ。
おっと、使っちまったか。
Aiming to be a monster of all monsters, we have Garou. While he definitely looks the part of a villain, I always found Garou to still be a child deep inside. I mean, his entire crusade of wanting to be a monster stems from thinking how cool it was back when he was a kid, and I can't really blame him. Monsters and villains always do tend to look the coolest. That being said though, while flaunting around a strategic mind and martial arts prowess, he at times also shows he has a heart peeking through. For me, I find the biggest example of this is when even after being literally put into a corner, he prioritizes the safety of a little kid.
小屋の中にガキがいる。そこから撃てば巻き添えになるぞ。
何を言うかと思えば、そんな出任せを信じると思うか。
At the end of the day, the villain role was just something always pushed to him back in his childhood when he'd get bullied. And while for now, we'll have plenty of awesome fights, I'm sure later down the road, we'll be able to see Garou remember that a monster doesn't have to always be a villain.
でもカニ魔人惜しかったね。マッハウーマンとリトルジャスティスが加勢してきても3対1で互角だったのはすごくかっこよかった。
Number 7.
世界はあなたに返しきれないほどの借りがあるのです。
ではそれに免じて3分だけ話を聞いてくれるか。
もちろんです。ですがその前にここにサインを。
Bringing together the world's armies next is the hero Ouchi Fukuchi. In season 5 of Bungo Stray Dogs, we finally witnessed the truly epic conclusion to the Decay of the Angel saga. One of the biggest plot twists for the season was the identity of Kamui being revealed as Ouchi Fukuchi, a close friend to Fukuzawa, who is of course the leader of the armed detective agency. We had seen Fukuchi develop his military power, charming world leaders into giving him more and more authority, seemingly to put an end to the terrorist threats. At the time, it was hard to imagine that he actually meant this to be against his dear friend who was being framed.
無敵のお前を破るには剣を手放させるしかない。この距離は福沢の間合い。腕を掴んでの背負い投げか。ひら落ちた怪盗。
Turns out though, he has a large part in the schemes being brewed and things clear up in the final stand in the airport. As he shares a stunning duel with his once best friend, we come to realize the true intentions behind his grand scheme, wanting nothing more than to put an end to war. He had always intended for Fukuza to be the man standing atop him in the end. Having been seen as a hero of war, he had come to know the horrors of what it really meant. This, alongside the beautiful goodbyes he shares with Fukuzawa, cements this as one of the most tear-inducing scenes in this already legendary anime. I really have a soft spot for tragedy between bros. If only we shared our feelings more.
少し疲れた。ゆっくり休め。
俺は世界平和を願う。
他に方法はなかったのか。
Number 6.
簡単に繋がりすぎる。かえって腑に落ちねえな。奴を使うか。
Moving on to the second best player in the classroom of the elite, we have Ryuuen. My boy Ryuuen here is one of my favorite characters that isn't a cute waifu. Part of the reason is that he enables my boy Ayano Koji to shine by acting as a good punching bag. But he's also a relentless dude himself, and even after that whole getting beat up incident, still decides to pursue trying to take him down. Well, only after some reflection, of course. Speaking of getting beat up, we learn a lot about his past in this scene, and by that I mean a 2-second flashback about some snake. Basically, he doesn't feel fear, and that's why he's got a whole ego trip personality going for him.
俺に恐怖はない。だが常人は痛みを知れば、それが恐怖へと変わる。
なら、その痛みってやつを教えてもらおうか。
望むなら、いくらでもな。
Classic bad boy personality that you can't help but want to see fixed or supported. His minions turned friends also lend well to showing that there is something good about him as a person. Ryuen's a broken hottie in my book, even if he did get a bit rough with my girl Kei.
最後まで黒幕を売らなかったことは尊敬に値する。だが残念だぜ軽井沢。 お前はここで壊す。
That's some cast of baddies we have so far. How are you liking the list? Have any others in mind that we missed? Comment down below to let us know. And as always, subscribe if you want to see more, and like and share this video if you want others to get in on this baddie action. Number 5.
安心しろ。私のそばにいれば大丈夫だ。力の使い方を教えてやる。
escaping fatherly responsibilities to get some psychic milk. Next up is Suzuki Toichiro, the leader of an evil psychic group hellbent on world domination. Suzuki strives to put psychics like himself on top of the food chain. Only thing stopping him now is a middle school kid with a bowl cut. Well, I guess he also has the power of friendship and strong psychic powers himself, so I kinda like him in this matchup. True to form, as a final boss, he takes his loss after a battle of epic proportions.
何を言ってる。私ほど運に恵まれた者は他にいないだろう。天が与えたこの力、お前たちは世界の主役である私を引き立てる早くに過ぎない。
In the end though, a villain has to fall, but not before a sad flashback showing the price of his crusade. In his journey to prove how much he can gain with powers, he was blind to what had already been lost, his family. Seemingly too late, as he's ready to burst like he's just watched some ecchi anime, Mob extends his kind hand to ultimately prevent his death and leave behind a reminder to kids everywhere. And despite having to pay for his crimes, Suzuki is at least able to have a second chance to face the family he turned away from. Number 4.
私ミランジョよ。あなたは？いなくなったわ。
Catching all the world's misfortunes, we have the sorceress Miranjo. Easily the most deserving entry on this list, there's no villain that comes to mind that's more broken and traumatized than Miranjo. Initially appearing as a scheming mirror, the series crescendos into a finale that sheds light on the tragic relationship between Miranjo and Boss. Born into a loving family in a kingdom of mages, both Chi and the people he was born with were a happy and kind bunch. So kind, in fact, that even after Boss came along to duel Miranjo's dad to the death, he was even healed and taken care of afterward. Eventually though, even kindness has a price. After Miranjo's people helped out some boonies' kingdom, they got stabbed in the back. Sadly for Miranjo, a stab ain't all she got, witnessing her own kind mother's gruesome end. She herself was subject to torture and disfiguration. As Boss returned to see how his favorite mother and daughter duo was doing, he was not very happy.
私はミランジョと一緒に生きていくことに決めた。彼女の笑顔をただ取り戻したかった。
Thus starts their sad coping adventure together. Miranjo herself coped for so long, her happy ending ended up being marriage to Boss's little son. Yeah, it's a little weird, but whatever gets that smile going.
もう泣くな。俺が必ず幸せにする。お前がたくさん笑顔になれるように。
Number 3.
これを飲んで体を温めて。ひどい顔色だよ。
会長、ありがとうございます。
Living a Chuni's dream of having an edgy life and dark magic, Sirius Dieke is here to enter the fray. Over the course of the first season of Bakarina's misadventures, we get to know Sirius Dieke as a model student council president. After feeling Bakarina's full angelic might though, he starts making moves to make sure his dark secrets aren't exposed. That includes kidnapping the light magic wielding heroine Maria. Inevitably, Bakarina and her harem sniff out his plans and corner him, making the perfect scene for a tragic backstory reveal. Turns out the president we've come to know is not Sirius Dieke, but instead Raphael Walt, who was part of some messed up dark magic ritual long ago. Having the heir of a noble woman, Raphael and his mom were kidnapped for the purpose of saving the real Sirius Dieke's life by transferring his soul into Raphael's body. Sadly, his mom was used as a sacrifice for this, and even the mage who made it all possible was killed as a loose end.
私にはお前しかいない。お前だけが頼りなの。だから死なせはしない。私のシリウス。
終わりました。
After everything though, he was still Raphael Walt, and was slowly bidding his time for revenge with the help of the mage's dark magic. In the end, through the power of Baccarina, he's able to escape the grip of vengeance, and turns himself in as Raphael Walt, his true identity all along. Thank God for that. I mean, Sirius D? Really? Number 2.
知識としては知っている。けれど会ったことはないよ。僕は彼の落とし子のようなものだからね。
Throwing a tantrum cause daddy left him, Civil has come to play. One of the bastard children of Sabaramond, Civil is a chaotic force among the powerful forces at play in Shinjuku. Having come out of curiosity for the corpse god, his main motivation is learning more about the fantasy world he's always read about. You see, Civil is essentially a clone of the great sorcerer Arius from the same world as the corpse god Riz.
今の魔力の使い方。サバラモンドさん。
However, Civil basically knows nothing of substance, having no real purpose since Arius never went to the modern world to make use of his body. So now, after running into the first person to have direct connections to the fantasy world, he decides he wants to rumble. Sounds a bit ridiculous, but this was all in an effort to get Riz to either join him so he isn't lonely, or help him create a way back to the fantasy world he's never seen. With his henchwomen in tow throwing some hands for him as well, he has no qualms about getting rid of the entire city and even transforming the whole world to be more fitting to his and Riz's magical nature. As you're already familiar with though, the corpse god uses the power of friendship that goes beyond life and death to put an end to all this chaos. At least Civil got a friend in the end, or at least I hope so. Where's my season 3?
元の世界に戻るのは今は諦める。この世界にも生きる価値があるって分かったからね。
Number 1.
これが対戦相手をことごとく焼き殺してきたグレンの女、ローズ・アレオンの実力よ。
Firing the Rose Bullet, our final entry is Rose Aleon. Originally a great deal of help to our girl Eve, it was a shame to see the relationship between the two start to get shaky. But I guess if you deal in dirt, you can't escape to get out clean. So now they find themselves face to face with Eve fighting for the sake of the home that's taken care of her. What follows is a golf match of epic proportions, with as many bullets as an episode of Gun Gale Online. Of course, bullets in this context are just JoJo-esque golf hits. I'm all here for it though, as I gotta say this is one of my favorite anime, and Rose's little arc is a good example of why it is. In the guise of a pretty straightforward shonen head-to-head, we start learning of her tragic backstory involving her loss of a golf match and her hand along with it. But really, that's just extra sauce to the reality that is her lack of talent.
本当にお前は愚かな女だ。
That talent that her mentor eventually found in Eve. So just with that, this match has just as much substance as the final battle in Hunter x Hunter. Except we're not even halfway through the first cour. Isn't that great? Anyway, the true value of Rose as a character for me is not her short-lived journey as an antagonist. Instead, it's the continued tragic end that follows. With Eve's ruthless victory, she's end up dead to rights, and even henchwoman A can't hold back the sorrow. And not that it helps with the tears, but she does meet her mentor one last time before the end that she greets with a smile, making us stew in the fact that the failed talent, Rose Aleon, was at least able to allow a new talent to pursue the light she herself didn't.
行けよ、イブ。日の当たる場所へ。俺が目を背けた世界へ。
And And that is all for this episode. Don't you just want to give all these characters a hug? I think we can all relate to having a bit of brokenness somewhere inside. And for me personally, I think a super thanks for this video would go a long way in helping with ours. If you can't though, don't sweat. A like and subscribe go a long way too. Share this video if you want others to know villains aren't always pure bad. And don't be shy in joining the comments down below. It's never too late to avoid a villain arc.